Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's Marks with TCG Discussions. Welcome back to the BlackBeard guide. Today, we're going to discuss our arch nemesis, Blue Doflamingo, and we're going to discuss and break down the best ways to play against this deck. So strap in. I'm excited. Hope you're excited too. Let's get into it. Blue Doflamingo is easily your hardest current matchup and the worst matchup of OP09 and OP10. 10.5, he's still honestly terrible. In OP09, Japan says it's about 60-40 favored over you. So it's like 40% win rate for you, 60% win rate for them. And it really felt back in 09 that it's 75-25. OP10, it's probably 65-35 in their favor. We got a little bit of an increase due to 6-cost lib. Stats for the first second rate state that it is 37.2 over 30.4. So that means if you go first, you have a 37% chance to win. And if you go second, you have a 30.4. There's some variation in there that's going to be due to your play as the player, as the BlackBeard player. So these stats can increase a little bit, and they can probably represent that 40%, right? Back in 09, or that higher than 35, and we could climb a little bit higher there. But overall, I'd probably say that these win rates are pretty true. So when to pitch for your leader effect against Doffy, you must pitch for the first turn in which they can attack, and every turn forward until you cannot afford to. The key to the pitch in this matchup is resource denial. The more they have, the harder this will be for you to win the game. Additionally, what you're really attempting to achieve is to get Doffy to blind whiff off the top of their deck to allow on plays that will allow Doffy to stack and continue pressure through Buggy, Perona, Boa, etc. Right? And by preventing the stack, you can alleviate some of the pressure and scenarios at you through their whiff. So if you're going to ask me, because some people do ask me, hey, when should I be pitching on BlackBeard? Can you make a guide on how to do that? Well, we're going to do that for basically every single deck that we cover. And this one specifically, basically their second turn going forward, right? Like, you are going to be pitching for that resource denial. You're going to be pitching to basically prevent them from guaranteeing that their stack is going to net them a body to the board. Some people ask me, hey, if Doffy is going second to prevent the draw from the Sengoku and the stack off of Perona, would you pitch? And the answer is no, right? You just can't go that low in hand too early with BlackBeard. So basically the turn they can attack and play a body, that's when you want to pitch. Key cards versus Doffy. Van Augur, that Q. I bid 500 million. It's going to be best as a trigger. Fingo Pister is going to be best as a trigger, or Shigon, as I always call it in my videos. 6-cost Liberation, Black Hole, Burgess, Vasco Shot, Shiryu, 4-cost, and 10-cost Teach. All of these have their niches. I do want to note that triggers are your best friends in this. When I say best as a trigger, I mean that. If 500 million and Finger Pistol come out as triggers, literally Doffy is starting to reel, especially in 010 after we got the 6-cost lib event. And then Burgess, Vasco Shot, Shiryu, 4-cost, your Dock Qs and Van Augurs, they're going to carry you through the mid game, and the hyper late game will be carried by 10-cost each. So the best cards against you for Doflamingo that they can play against you are going to be the following cards. These three are the most standard. You can include the 3K Worlds, right? We'll talk about that here in a minute, but they started teching that more after I had made this slide. But the bottom line is you are going to generically run into these three cards across the board for Doflamingo. So Martial Teach, this card is the best card in the deck against you because it lets you as a Doffy player play 2 4-cost cards in the same turn. Downside for the Doffy player is it decreases the hand size, which we'll talk about. Gravity Blade can bottom deck Burgess, Dock Q, and Van Augur, denying your cards or your bid swings in the late game, and Red Rock bottom decks Teach and trigger hits Burgess or lower, which is really painful. So what do you do against them? The 2-cost Teach. 2-cost Teach is a threat to your game plan, and also in another sense your friend. The obvious problem is that Teach enables the ability to play 2 4-cost cards as soon as turn 3 and 5 dawn on the odd curve onward. So this means that they can play a 4-cost card, they'll have 1 Dawn, Teach will attach 2 rested Dawn to the leader, and then they can tap that remaining Dawn for the 5th Dawn to play a body off the top of their deck, which is going to be guaranteed because they played Teach effect. However, there are 2 things that are good for you in this scenario, despite the fact that you're getting a bunch of pressure. The first is that the blue Doffy player will be at less cards in hand to defend against swings on his cards. -1 for the play of Teach, -1 for the 4 cost, and a minus for the top of the deck play off of the leader effect. Okay, so they have to play down the Teach, they have to play down a 4 cost, and they have to commit a card to their hand to the top of the deck to play off of the Teach effect for the leader effect that they're now using. On top of these minuses, if the card flopped off a leader bill is a 5k, then it's best for BB to swing 7 and then cost some more cards. More often than not, they will let that card that is rested go. So there is counterplay to this card, and we will dive a little bit more into the curve lines that prove this later mathematically. So what to do against them? Gravity Blade, right? What can we do against this card? So Gravity Blade is the hardest card to play around, honestly, because you want to commit to cards that either in tandem together or just standalone are very good against Doflamingo. But Gravity Blade, both as a trigger and out of life, are just increasingly painful no matter which way you get that swing to just flat out remove it. Bottom deck and 2 different cards can both deny draws off your Van Augur and .Q, which is just really hurtful. Additionally, this card bypasses Burgess' protection effect and can take away all of your setup momentum for damage or counter swings into Doffy's cards. So this is like with Shiryu and Burgess, like if you like pop the Teach and then you have like a Burgess on the board, they can just Gravity Blade both of those cards, and then now you just have absolutely no pressure. Let's say they do this at 10 Dawn. They can flat out flop possibly another body off the top. They can play Teach, put a card on the top. It just gets all sorts of wacky. If they Gravity Blade when there's a Teach on the board and they're at 8 Dawn, it's just even more backbreaking. Worst is a trigger out of life. They can hit anything in your deck that isn't Kuzan, basically, and you will basically never play the 10 cost Teach, simply because it's just not very good for you to play in this matchup. And Kuzan is pretty much your saving grace. So luckily we got Kuzan to help in the matchup. It can't be bottom decked, can swing and play out cards later in the turn, forcing our opponent to commit to most of their turn to removal. Back-to-back Gravity Blades in most situations is GG, it's game over, okay? There is counterplay to the card, which we'll talk about, but overall, if you get Gravity Bladed twice and 4 cards get bottom decked in that game against this matchup specifically, you've probably lost the game. I think I've only survived Gravity Blade twice and won Red Rock once and won the game. And I have hundreds of games, hundreds on hundreds of games of Blackbeard. So what to do against them? Red Rock? Red Rock is not a popular card that is plain Doffy, but it has appeared in some lists. BB is more popular in the meta. I expect this card to make more appearances in the meta, which by now in 010, I'm sure as you know, that sentence is probably a little tad dated, but Red Rock is also falling a little bit out of favor. So it's probably a little bit more relevant and niche to the acclamation of this card because it's not nearly as good against GP and EB. So like if you do run into a Doffy, they may be playing less of this card and more of Gravity Blade to hopefully address multiple cards on the board, like a Sanji Pudding and a Zoro or something else if they can't protect it with the stage. But Red Rock is mainly for the 10 cost stage and has a powerful trigger to hit .Q and Burgess that is played early, so you got to watch out when you're swinging to life. There is no counterplay to this card and its purpose in the matchup. So that is to say that this card has basically replaced Perfume Fumer in most Doffy lists, and additionally, you cannot play around this card. If they want to Red Rock a card, I'm sorry that they're going to do that, and you're not going to do anything about it. What do you expect me to say here? Like, don't play 10 cost Teach when it's like advantageous for you too, because they might have Red Rock. It's just going to happen. And unfortunately, it does have a trigger to bottom deck a 4 or less. So if you run into this card, it's in their life. Like, it can just hit your .Q, it can hit your Vasca Shaw, it can hit your Burgess. It's a super painful card. You can't play around the card. You really can't. So the counterplay to the 2 cost Teach. The counterplay to Teach is in the hand of the Doffy player to consecutively use this card's effect. Additionally, this card is spinning out 2/4 cost of Doffy, and it walks right into the 6 cost liberation event. And because of certain attacks early, if you drain the hand and play the event, Doffy can get board wide while being left with little resources in their hand, and this is what you're hoping to achieve. So this is the turn curve to play around the 2 cost Teach in the early game, and this is just an example, okay? So Doffy turn 1 plays 1 drop. Best scenario is Perona with forward hand. And the reason why I say Perona is because you're basically, as a Teach player, going to negate their effects from here on forward. If they play Sengoku, even though they will increase to 5 in hand, and that's assuming that they add a card, but let's just say that they don't have the worst luck ever in whiff, and they get a good old 5 in hand. The reason why Perona is best in scenario is because they can then plan around the fact that they will draw, play, and they can guarantee the next 2 turns that they're not going to whiff. And if they have Teach in hand, they can then stack that accordingly to the way that they want. Then turn 1 for Teach, dot Q, no effect, leader effect, forward hand. Doffy for turn 2, 2 cost Teach and a 7k swing at leader to flop out a 4 cost. They will draw to 5, play Teach, which will make them 4 in hand, so they're back to 4, so they have Perona, now they have Teach, and then Teach effect in hand to play the 4 cost card, so now they're down to 3 in hand. Teach's turn 2, Labuna, dot Q clear, Black Hole, Finger Pistol, or Big Leader swing over the card. Dot Q can KO Perona if they big swing over the card, like a 5k, for example, and you go 9 over 5, they are not going to give you the last 3 cards in their hand to protect that 1 5k. Guaranteed that's not going to happen. They may give you 2 2ks to defend a 6, but that would also be just forfeiting the game almost on the spot if you draw well for the rest of the game. At which point, if you did play dot Q on your first turn, going second on the even curve for Blackbeard, they will be at 1 card in hand with 1 body, which almost must swing into the dot Q. One of those bodies must swing into dot Q, because if they don't, then Venar come down the next turn and then KO that 4 cost that's on the board. You probably took a damage off of the 7k swing. You'll take the damage of the 7k swing, you'll go to 5, you'll draw to 6, then if you swing over the 4 cost card, you're going to pitch for turn, and then you'll probably at that point you will be at 5 cards in hand, so you go from 6 to 5. You will be at 4 if you play an event or Laboon or something to KO the 4 cost, and then at that juncture you're going to activate leader ability. So Doffy's turn 3, you're going to draw to 4 cards in hand. Okay, Doffy plays a 4 cost, now they're down 3. Teach ability, they're down to 2. 7k swing at a life for dot Q. BB will either draw a card or get a life. So they're going to draw off the dot Q or they're going to get a life. If they have a 1 cost card on the board, they will swing into the dot Q if it's rested. But if you have the big swing over the card, they let it go. And on top of which you KO'd the Perona, all of this still remains the same. You will draw a card off the dot Q, and then they will probably not swing at your life. They basically are forced to, because if there's a 4 cost that's flopped off the top of the deck, and you play Van Augur on the following turn, that 4 cost is going to get cooked for free, right? So if they attack life, they're increasing the odds, and then with Kuzan and everything else, they can free pitch off the Kuzan, and then you can get a draw on top of playing the Augur and still get rid of the 4 cost, which is just devastating for them. The attack is at life, and they swing over your dot Q with Teach. BB will probably take this because of Liberation on the next turn. So what this means, they can basically play 2 bodies at this juncture with like a 4 cost into another cost, and they will be down to 2 cards in hand, and they will be also subsequently forced to swing into dot Q. So I'm going to repeat this one more time because I know this is a little bit complicated. Doffy's going to draw to 4. They play a 4 cost, go down to 3. Teach ability, they will take a card out of their hand, they will go down to 7 swing, will either go into life or dot Q. BB will either draw a card or get a life out of this scenario, which we'll talk about in a second. If the attack is at life and they swing over your dot Q with Teach, BB will take this because of the Liberation event next turn. You are getting more odds to get that card. Okay, so Church's turn 3. Teaches at 4 to 5 cards, drawing into 5 or 6, and this is dependent. If you are at 4 cards in hand and they swing at life and you get to draw off the dot Q, then you will be at 6, right? Depending on if they swung over the dot Q, you may not be at 6 cards, you may be at 5. So Teaches at 4 or 5 cards in hand, drawing into 5 or 6. Liberation down to 4 to 5 cards. This also eliminates 2 4 cost bodies, and then you will swing over the Teach with the BB leader, which there are only 2 cards in Doffy's hand, and it would take a 2 2 and a 1, and they will be at 0 top decking to simply get over that swing to protect the teach, of which they will assuredly let go. There are probably more examples and ratio change based on different turn factors, but this is just a rough math way on the even curve for Blackbeard to play around the 2-cost teach in the early game. Additionally, this last sentence, there are probably more examples and ratios change based on different turn factors. This could be number 1, what is played; number 2, how much they protect; number 3, if they swung with certain cards; and number 4, did you draw what you needed to in this scenario, which is ideal for you to proceed on this curve correct. So there are lots of things that factor into this, but this is just best case scenario, and bear this curve and on the even side in mind, because you want to commit these options to memory. You want to know what you can do against him, right? You want to know what you can play against Doflamingo on these curves in these manners and what you can do from there. So playing around Gravity Blade, which is the next card we're going to talk about. So Doffy and Vanguard are the biggest targets for Gravity Blade, because not only is Doffy getting rid of cards that KO your cards. So like if you're the Doffy player, you're Gravity Blading, you're getting rid of 2 cards that KO your cards. Doffy will not have to attack them and deny you more cards, which is the worst part about Gravity Blade, and it is pretty unavoidable, right? Doffy and Van Augur are 2 of the best cards in the matchup by far, and it is basically unavoidable if they have Gravity Blade on curve or properly to get rid of both of these cards. Burgess is what hurts for the pressure against Doffy, but he isn't necessary as clearing the board. So Burgess is not guaranteed, right? Attacking over a card that is sideways, even though Doffy plays the card in sideways, it doesn't mean they don't have the cards in hand to protect the card. And if they do, then it can be a counter swing into your Burgess, which you're basically going to let go because you don't have a lot of cards for most of the game against Doflamingo. And then additionally, on top of it, like they still will just have that card for you to now get rid of on their subsequent turn, and simultaneously on top of all of that, if they play another body in, now you have to get rid of both of them. So it's like really tough. Kuzan is the same in grace, as we can set up the Kuzan on curve, where if the board is clear, we can then walk them to our best play lines without having to worry about Gravity Blade. We get pressure and a draw into setup of removal combos, which is very good, right? So what this means is, like, number 1, if you get somehow on the odd curve a searcher into search or swing 6 dot Q line into a Van Augur pitch into Kuzan draw to bring back the Augur to KO whatever 4 cost, that is like your normal bread and butter line on the odd curve, which we'll talk about later. But this card is just especially just a boon on that line, and it's also a counter to Gravity Blade. So honorable mentions: 3K Worlds, right? A couple of weeks in the OP10 meta and some new emergent tech has come out. 3K Worlds, 10 cost Kaido and 7 cost Doffy. 3K Worlds and any card like this is impossible to play around. So you'll have to take this card on the chin when it comes. You cannot simply not play Van Augur to get rid of a card because of 3K. If they have it, they have it. The bottom line is like, if you have like Doc Q Van Augur and they have like the on curve 3K Worlds to like get rid of the card, you're just gonna have to take that on the chin, bud, because like the bottom line is you're not gonna let that 4 cost live to try and play around you not having that Augur on the board. Like, I mean, that just doesn't even make sense. So like, you just have to take this card on the chin. There isn't a way to play around the card. I mean, it's not. If you play Burgess and they play 3K, I mean, they play 3K. That's just what it is. 10 cost Kaido and 7 cost Doffy. Both these cards should be kind of dead in their hand, honestly. If they like play both of these cards against you, it's a little bit weird. 7 cost Doffy can be okay if they like have a teach on the board to play it like another body. That can be like really annoying, but outside of that, it's like not that serious against you, right? Second cost Doffy can pop off Van Augur into Liberation or Shigan. When I say Liberation, I mean Black Hole, because I forgot that like you can Van Augur Black Hole the card, but on the sim it's also called Liberation. So it's like sorry about that, I got my stuff confused. But Stronger Shigan is also an ability for you to get rid of any 7 costs in the game. Like if they play like a Luffy Taro, you should be thinking about this combo, right, to alleviate that pressure from the 7-8. 10 cost Kato shouldn't come down, period. Yeah, this is basically Doffy passing the turn. to attempt to establish a card that is basically free, inviting you to play 10 cost Teach to negate the card. And oh buddy, you better have Red Rock in your hand, because if you pass an entire turn for Teach and I just could free play at 10 cost and swing out with everything on the board, oh buddy, you're cooked. And if I have any way of getting rid of this card was trash against you. By the way, neither of these on play should get their effect. If they do, especially if 10 cost counter resolves, you're probably cooked at that point. You're losing the resource game that you've tried to deny all game, and then now they've got 4 cards. Additionally, you should be using leader effects, and these cards can come down. You de-incentivize them to play these cards based off your leader effect. Perfect Vimmer, just to talk about this card because it is fallen out of favor in Doffy decks, but like also at the same time, it's still a card you need to play around. Just do your best to not get to 0. Counter out of cheap swings when you can, and remember your game plan. I like to have this card until you can't anymore. I mean, this is like Goldie Roger, right? You know, you just don't want to be at 0 when this card comes down. Same with Roger. And remember, they play Red Rock now, and you should basically treat Red Rock the same, right? You should treat Red Rock like this card. They're essentially the same. Just remember that. So Doffy and OP10. The reality is Doffy is not an easy matchup in OP10 due to the nature of how cards are played in Doffy. Because they did not ban the 2 cost each, you can still play 2 cards per turn and just play the way that he did prior. Difference now is that Liberation is going to be the key to popping the board, especially Jozu. They run 4 Red Rock, 2 to 3 Gravity Blade, and 0 to 1 Ephemer. Play through the removal by making the removal of Grab Blade suboptimal or not affect the board in a manner that they aren't getting super value. An example of this is keeping 1 Burgess on the board and playing removal spells for most of the game and swinging over cards that tax the hand. And then what you would do from there is then counter flood the board. So like, let's say that you're on the odd curve, and if for some reason you just have like 1 card that's on the board and it was just like Burgess. After establishing the Burgess, it's not really good to like have Gravity Blade come down to get rid of the card, but then at another junction in the game, you're able to play out at like 9 Dawn, right? You just spit out like Van Augur, Dalq, and Vasco Shot next to the Burgess. It's gonna get really tricky, right? And that is just another way to play around the card, and then you just keep taxing the hand over and over. Additionally, with the increase of Red Rock, there are more bricks for the top deck flips. So do I go first or second versus Doffy? Personally, I prefer to go first. I know that in the grand scheme of playing so many even curve cards, Dalq, Burgess, and Teach, it seems like we'd want these cards to hit nicely. However, that is not the case in this matchup. First is strong for 2 reasons. The Dalq auger Q's online and slowing their aggression, and the Doffy player has weird lines to deal with your board. So what do I mean by this? So you go first, you play a Searcher. Turn 2, swing 6, or search again, swing 5, play Dalq. And then if you get in that junction between them swinging at your life to attempt to play a card, or they get to play a card because they guarantee you a Teach or something else, and you get Augur and Kuz on your hand, this is going to be completely huge. Whatever 4 cost that is dead. And then additionally, on top of everything else, you are then able to draw an extra card, and they cannot grab blade you on the subsequent turn because they will be at 6 Dawn. So they cannot just grab blade the card. They can, however, 3K World's a card, which is tough. And the Doffy player has weird play lines to do with your board, and that's exactly what I'm referring to with that. If you're on the odd curve, they cannot gravity blade you when you have an Augur and Dalq on the board. They must resort to something else. They can get 3K Worlds, and I've had people red rock my Van Augur, which I'll take that. It's just also not easily meshable. On odd curve for Doflamingo, they can hit grab blade on curve, and additionally they can on the odd Dawn curve play Teach down on their second turn and use leader ability, right? So you can see how it's like a little bit more awkward for them if they just have to like play down a Teach and then commit now an 8 swing when you're gonna take it anyway, just to play 1 body and potentially like have that body be whatever it is and get swung over, or you know, just straight up popped by a line. So the first curves, so you got turn 1 Searcher, which is going to be Era, Lafitte, and Stage. Doffy will play 0 to 2 Searchers. If 0, then yay. It's usually 1 to 2. So if they go second, they're usually playing 1 to 2. So turn 2, you're going to play Dalq ideally, or double Lafitte, so you could just like search out insanely. So this would be like you played Lafitte turn 1, and then you search off and then play like a second Lafitte after you swing at their life for 5. Doffy may play Teach or swing 5 and play 4 cost. It just depends. It just depends, right? Like it's completely dependent on Doffy's hand at that point. Turn 3, Augur or preferably Kuzan into Augur, kill the 4 cost. of whatever it is, right? And that's if you played the .Q ideally. Doffy can't Gravity Blade because they're on 6. They may Red Rock the Augur or swing 5. They can't play the 4 cost if they Red Rock, which is really good for you. 3-card Worlds is the worst option for you here. They can play a body and move the Augur, and then swing in the .Q with the Teach, which is just really bad, really bad. And if they have a 1 cost, they can also swing into it. That's only if they were at 0, right? Turn 4, you're going to Kuzan Augur .Q Liberation, swing 6. You can sure you pop the Teach and swing into the body, played off the Teach for 8. You can also play Removal, Shigan Black Hole, and swing over the 2-cost Teach. Duffy has to establish Born and swing into life at this point. Maybe weird at flooding without Teach. So what is happening here? Your turn 4, you basically can play another Augur.Q or Kuzan into Augur.Q. You can live and then swing 6 with your leader. You can sure you pouch your Teach and then swing into a body, play off the Teach. And then you can also play like Removal and then swing over the 2-cost Teach if they swung into a card. And then additionally, anything else you can just use leader to swing at. And then you can either do more searching or then play like .Q to KO something else and then swing 6 into something. And if you remove the Teach at any point, it's going to be very, very odd for Doflamingo to kind of counter flood play if like Teach is dead and they like have to play like another body that they want to play alongside and all this other stuff, and you didn't play Lib, and then like they walk into Lib automatically and it took them like 3 cards out of their hand to do so because they played a body, they played a Teach, they played another one, and you just killed everything. It's gonna feel really bad for them because again they didn't like counter remove, right? And then turn 5 you're basically gonna repeat above, and then turn 6 repeat above and play 10-cost Teach. And so like your lines on the odd curve honestly just get more like context dependent on your hand, and it can just be completely devastating for Doffy, right? Like it can just feel completely awful. When 10-cost Teaches are in play, like you're not gonna be playing them until the super late game when you know that like you can stun 1 card and prevent them from swinging at you, and simultaneously like you have that blocker. They basically must all in with their leader, otherwise it's not going to move, and now a 10-12 is going to be swinging at them or over a card. So these are the general tips. Do not prioritize 10 costs until absolute late game. If you have a 10 cost in your hand against Doflamingo, I don't give a crap what turn or curve it's on, you get rid of that crap immediately. If you have like a state search, like you search the top 3 cards of your deck and you were wondering what card to pitch and 10 cost Teach is in your hand, you get rid of that 10 cost Teach. I'm just letting you know right now, especially with like 3-4 red rock running around in this deck, you just can't afford to play that card and then just immediately lose it. You cannot prioritize that non-counter card all game simply to have it for the late game and have that card immediately moved by red rock and you take a 9 to the face or an 8 and a body is played. It's just not going to happen, right? So don't even bother trying to prioritize the card till the late game. Do not attack life if there's something on board to clear unless you can math game in a position that won't make you lose. So this is like, again, back to what I talked about with you needing to understand your fundamental in-game play lines. If you can't see the winning line, or you can't recognize that you need to go for game, otherwise you have no chance at winning game, you should not be swinging at their life. If there's something to attack out on the board, you need to be taking cards out of Dovy's hands to let that card live, or they need to give it to you. And you can set them up for game if you don't die. And those are few and far between games, let me tell you. They're very few and far between. Vasca Shot is also actually huge in the mashup and can prevent pesky damage if they don't have Gravity Blade or trying to settle the board. And this pattern right here is like the best formula against Doffy that I can provide. Remove, attack to starve first, deal damage later. Do not try to race, you're gonna lose. I'm gonna repeat that one more time just so that you really get it. Remove, attack to starve first, deal damage, do not race, you will lose. So remove, prioritize getting rid of the cards. Attack to starve, attack at their bodies, take cards out of their hand. Those are also resources they can't use against you. Deal damage later. You will be able to attack them when you are more advantageous and can handle what they're going to play or do. And remember to sequence correctly. They have a lot of triggers. So if you have a Burgess or a Van Augur on the board, you need to be attacking with your bodies. If you were attempting to deal damage and there is nothing to get rid of, you need to get rid of those bodies first before attacking their life, because you do not want a trigger to come out of that life and then bottom deck one of your cards and ruin your turn. You just don't. This pattern, remove, attack the star first, deal damage later. It needs to be in that order. If you had like Venal or Dock Q Burgess, right? And you swing with Burgess, you hit a grab blade trigger and it bottom decks the Augur and they have a 4 cost on the board. That's just the absolute punish of all time. Like, you're going to lose the game probably off that one trigger, right? Depending on the game state. And it's just going to feel completely horrible. You can deal damage later after you remove and attack to starve them. And then if you just get caught up in thinking that you need to race them to the end game, you don't win this off of a race. You win this by dragging Doflamingo through the mud, getting them into positions where they, as the player themselves, do not understand what's going on in front of them, and they're like, I'm reeling. They've got a lot of cards on the board. I didn't see Gravity Blade. Like, this is really terrible. Like, what do? I just play more buys. Oh god, I lost my entire board again. Like, what do? You drag them through the mud, bring them into these weird scenarios, let the ball come to you, and then you will score the basket by eventually walking them down. That's how you win any of these matchups against Doflamingo. You cannot win this trying to be like, I played Burgess, and then I just beat them to death. It just does not work here. It may work against Shanks, where you can play 10 cost teach, turn off their leader ability, and stop at 10-12, and beat them down with Burgess over and over again. But when they grab Blade 2 Burgess, you're gonna feel the heat of you wasting your entire time trying to out-establish them, and they just get to keep establishing for free off of leader effect, and you're taking damage, and they're not taking damage anymore, and your cards are gone. Just remember that. So that's gonna be it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will catch you guys in the next one. And this is Marcus from TCG Discussions signing off. Laters.
起きろ。起きろ。起きろ。